Hey guys, it's John here from Sonic Drive Studio, and as always, I hope you're all safe and well. Today we're going to do something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that is try to sound like Deftones from the Around the Fur and White Pony era. Now this is quite daunting, to be honest, because those guitar tones are quite legendary and unique, so I knew that I'd never be able to replicate those tones 100%, but we'll see how close I got with my setup though. I wrote and recorded some riffs in the vein of Deftones, so now let's take a listen to the final results, and after that I'll walk you through the gear that I used and the settings, etc. Here we go. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that. It sounded pretty close, right? Now let me show you how I got these tones. The first thing in the chain, of course, is my ESP LTD SC-20 Stephen Carpenter signature guitar. Using the signature guitar from the actual artist really helps in this case. This guitar is equipped with a Seymour Duncan JB in the bridge position, which also happens to be the pickup that Stephen Carpenter himself used for the recording of the Around the Fur album. I'm not exactly sure if he also used this for the White Pony record or not, because I read somewhere that he started using the EMG pickups around that time, so could be either EMGs or the Seymour Duncan JB for that record. However, for the purpose of this video, I decided to stick with the Seymour Duncan JB. And that is going into my Marshall JMP-1 preamp. This is the amp that Stephen Carpenter himself used during that era. He might have used the 80A MP1 preamp for the recording of Around the Fur, but he definitely used the JMP-1 for the recording of White Pony. And he used these amps for years after that as well, so the core of Stephen Carpenter's sound is definitely in these preamps. He recently even moved back to the JMP-1 for his guitar tones after having used fractal modeling for years. So I'm looking forward to seeing them live again. It's going to be interesting to see how his live guitar tone has evolved. So the JMP-1 definitely was the bones of his tones during that era, so that's why I decided to use this amp. I ended up using the OD2 channel with bass shift turned off, with a gain setting of 18, and bass, mids, treble, and presence were all set to 0. And with this preamp, 0 basically means that all the controls were set to the middle, so neutral. To power his JMP-1s, Stephen likely used his Marshall 9200 power amps. I do not have one of those, so I decided to use my JCM-2000 DSL50 power amp. It's basically a great sounding Marshall power amp with EL34s in the power section. So the JMP-1 is going into the effects return of that amp. Deep was set to on for some extra low end, and presence was set to around 7 for some extra brightness. From there, the DSL50 is being fed into my fractal audio load box, and I'm using an OwnHammer impulse response for the cab tones. Now I can never be 100% sure about what cabs or speakers Steph used for the recording of those records, but it's highly likely that he used Marshall 4x12 cabs equipped with some sort of Celestion speakers. I tried to look it up on the internet, but it's hard to find some sort of definitive evidence about what actual speakers he used for those albums. Perhaps it could have been Celestion V30s, T75s, K100s, or CL80s. Bands and their producers do tend to experiment a lot in the studio, so it's hard to say what they ended up using for the actual recordings. Anyway, so I looked for a 4x12 Marshall cabinet with various speaker options in the current OwnHammer lineup, and I ended up using the 412 MAR from the Legacy Studio Mix Collection pack. I tried a bunch of different speakers in that cabinet, but I ended up using the V30-CH for this video because that just sounded the best to my ears. I ended up using the T1 tube power amp voicing option this time because that helps to get that sort of scooped metal tone. And I ended up using the Studio Modern mic mix. The beauty of the OwnHammer Legacy Studio Mix collection is that you can choose a lot of different speaker types in a bunch of different cabs. So it allows you to really create the sound that you have in your head. Now that was all recorded into Cubase, where I applied some subtle post-processing. I just applied a high-pass filter with the Slate SSL EQ at around 80 Hz, and that's just to remove some low-end rumble that tends to get in the way of the bass guitar and or kick drum. So that's not a lot of post-processing at all. I think I came pretty darn close this time around, but who knows, maybe I'll try again in the future. What do you think? Did I get close enough with the tones this time? Please let me know in the comments, and also don't forget to hit subscribe along with the bell. You can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!